Well, hello, welcome back to Tail 3 Cabins. I'm down here in southern Ohio where we just tore our cabin down and we're kind of off the grid now, no electricity. In fact, I met with the electric guy today. They're going to coil up the wire from our old cabin and pull out the pole and get ready for the new place to come in. So we're going to be without power for a little while. If you've watched my channel before and fairly recent, you know that I do a lot of power station reviews. And I just did a couple of reviews on some rather large power stations over 2,000 watt hours, and the inverter is up around 2,400 watts of output. So that's a pretty good size, can run most of your appliances. When I did the reviews of those power stations, they are a little pricey. One is towards the $2,000 range and the other one was around $1,500, $1,600, maybe a little bit less if you can find a sale or a deal from time to time. But if you're on a budget and you're looking for that same capability of some of the more expensive power stations, Fossibot sent me this and I agreed to check it out for him and do a review on it, specifically because I knew we were tearing our place down here in southern Ohio and that I was going to need something maybe to keep down there, keep it in the shed for a while and be our alternative for power and still deliver us the wattage we needed, whether we were going to have to run a table saw, circular saw, of course charge up multiple batteries, running lights and stuff like that. And I've hooked it up to a solar panel and I've been powering Starlink, I've been charging batteries, I've been charging my cameras, also the trickle charger for my lawnmower. So it's getting its use and I tested it out. And this brand is called Fossibot. This is an F2400. The 2400 basically must stand for the output of the inverter. It's pretty good size. It is 2,048 watt hours, so it's got a pretty good storage capacity on it too. There's a few things right off the bat when I looked at it I do like about it. It has two nice sturdy handles on the side here. This unit weighs about 48 pounds. It's not too bad for me to lug around. They do make a kit with wheels on the bottom if you want to get that kit, and in fact if you go on their website, I was looking now, you can get that wheel kit for free if you order this. I don't know how long that's going to last or how long they're going to keep that deal going, but I just thought I would throw that out there. Another thing that I thought was pretty cool is this storage compartment on the top, which holds all the cables that comes with it. So it comes with the AC cable, it comes with a DC cable for charging off your car, then it comes with the appropriate solar panel connections, and that uses an Anderson connection. That's the red and black connection here on the side. You can either charge with your AC or your Anderson connection using either solar or your vehicle. So I do like the storage compartment, keeps everything with it. I like these sturdy handles. The unit seems very sturdy. Another thing that struck me right off the bat, and I'm just covering some of the highlights when you compare it to other power stations, you know, a lot of them just have the same things. They're all going to have outlets. They're going to all have AC outlets and USB, etc. This also has this dial here, and I like this also because this adjusts your input charging. So you can turn this dial, if you're charging off of a plug where you don't particularly want to use a lot of wattage out of that plug, you could dial this down to just charge at a 300 watt rate, or you could dial it up in increments, 500, 700, and all the way up to 1100 watts. And this will recharge this whole unit in less than 2 hours from zero. So it charges fairly quick. It's going to be charging lithium iron phosphate batteries. A lot of these power stations have gone to this type of chemistry in the batteries now because it's safer, longer lasting. They're capable of lasting up to 10 years and over 3,000 cycles to just 80%. So if we just want to start here on the on your left, you're going to have your regular DC type cigarette lighter input. This is another thing unique here, is this is a 12 volt XT60 connection, and that is 25 amps. So 25 amps, I've never really seen. Usually it's 10 amps or 12 amps for a lot of these DC connections, but I've never seen 25 before. So if you have a large amperage you need on the DC side, this can handle quite a bit. And then down here you have your barrel connections, your 5521 barrel connections. Each one has an individual on-off switch to turn these on and off. In the center you have a light, and basically you have an on, just a SOS strobe, and then just a regular strobe light effect. Sometimes I think having a light is gimmicky, but in all honesty, there are times when I like having it on a power station, and I do use it when there are lights on these things. Over here is your display screen, and it does give you a lot of information. It tells you your input, your output, your time left when you have something running or when you have something that's charging it. So time left to finish charging or time left to exhausting this battery if you're outputting. Over here again is the selector knob for AC charging to dial it from 300 watts all the way up to 1100. And then you have your USBs over here, your USBs A's, 2 USB-Cs, these are 20 watts each, and then on the bottom is 2 more USB-Cs, and one is 100 watts and then another 20 watt one. So there are 16 outputs altogether on this unit, so that is plenty. On the side here is where you're going to find your AC plugs. There are 6 AC plugs over here. These are rated for 2400 watts. They also deliver a pure sine wave. Now when I hooked this up to my meter, it was giving me around 111 volts. So it's not 120 volts, it's somewhere around 110. As I said, I got 111 off of my meter. While we're on the subject of the AC outlets, why don't we go ahead and test it with a few tools around the house and typical use. This is a DeWalt Professional circular saw. This is a rigid pancake compressor. And this will be both. The compressor stuttered for a second from the startup surge of the circular saw, but after that, both ran fine. Then lastly, a chop saw. It has these little flaps here that you have to remember when you're going to be using this, especially if you're going to do some heavy duty charging or you're going to be doing some heavy duty discharging, is you open these little flaps, and then that is for the air circulation, and the fans are built into where these little flaps are. Now at first I thought maybe that's a little hokey having these flaps that you have to remember to put up, but it's pretty much spelled out. You can see it in bright yellow letters that you have to lift this, so it's not like you're going to forget. And then when you close it, this thing seals up pretty tight. All these little gaskets, they are pretty weather tight. Now you're not going to dip this in water, but if it's in a little bit of a rainstorm or a little bit of a rain, or I have this underneath my RV, say I have it under one of my bunk ends and I'm using my RV and it's raining outside, I would not be too concerned about rain like blowing into the sides, especially when you can close these flaps up. You can make it a little bit more weather tight. If you come here and look at the other side, you have your AC connection here, and then you have your solar connection or your DC connection. So you can either use solar panels or you could use your vehicle. And when we're talking adding solar to this, you can charge up to 500 watts of solar. That's from 11.5 to 50 volts of solar. Also is the overload reset switch just above here. You can do dual charging with this, so you can connect to AC and crank this up to 1100 watts, and then you can also plug into the side and start charging on the DC side with your solar panels, and it will take up to 500 watts. So that's a total of 1600 watts together you could put to be charging this. If you're starting from zero, you could cut your charge time down to about 90 minutes. So if you don't want to spend $2,000 but get something similar to those $2,000 models, this is in the neighborhood of around $1,100 to $1,200. It costs a little bit less. Of course, there are trade-offs that you do have to be concerned about. I always recommend doing your own homework when you look into these things. If I were to have an issue with this in the next couple months, I would certainly give an update on my YouTube channel, but I'm not going to be here in the long run to tell you if it's going to last 5 to 10 years. So they offer a 2-year warranty. As far as I can tell, if you need to get some sort of service, that you pretty much do it via email, and that can be good and bad depending on the company. I can't speak to how that scenario is going to go. There are some that'll get back to you in a day, and there's some that get back to you in a week. So do your own homework on that. I've had good and bad experiences. I just wanted to bring this to your attention to let you know that you don't have to go out there and spend a couple $1,000s to get all those features packed into a very expensive unit. I also want to mention a couple other things. One thing that's essential is to have pass-through charging. What this does have, you can charge this and use it at the same time. There's also an uninterrupted power supply function which will switch over at 8 milliseconds. So if you're looking to save a little bit of money but you still want to get a lot of the features of some of the more expensive power stations, you can find it inside this unit. It does not have an app. Some of the other ones do have an app. But one thing I find about the app is that it's good when you first set it up, but there's been a couple times where I have not remembered the password and the app doesn't update, and then you have to relog into that app again, and then you end up having to set up a whole new account again or trying to get your password back, repairing up the power station. And most of the time that's not an issue, but if you're somewhere where you don't have internet or you're somewhere where you need to take care of something immediately, like those more expensive power stations that I mentioned, like the Anchor, you can only control the power input off of the app. And I like that you have this dial here because there's no app involved. You can just do it right on the fly. To me, that's a nice little feature. I kind of think that would be pretty cool to see in other power stations, to just be able to dial the input coming in on this power station for a couple reasons. Maybe you just don't want to tax these batteries and stress them out by charging at full charge, or maybe you just have an outlet that's a little bit sensitive to maybe clicking the breaker or popping a fuse, that if you're going to be using the full 1100 watts, so you want to dial it down a little bit. So I'll leave some information in the description below, a couple links, and if there's any deals going on, I'll certainly post that also. I appreciate everybody watching. I hope you enjoy and subscribe to these videos. Click on that little bell when you want to know when a new one's coming out, and keep an eye on us. I'm going to go put this back into service and hook it back up to my Starlink and get back online.